right, good morning. So I'm here to be the customer's voice and to tell you about our journey of how we migrated our database to GCP. So that's the best title I could think of. We are in the cloud, sorta, and we'll get into that in a minute. So Conversa is a 20-year-old company. We're in the telecom vertical, and we're focused primarily on call tracking and call analytics. So 20 years is a lot of time in technology years. We started with actual recorders. We're not in the software business. I'm going to move this so I can move my head. And then we have 90-plus employees. Over 50,000 rooftops use us. 640 billion calls have been analyzed over the years. And we've spent a lot of hours on data science, AI, and ML. So with that being said, we serve a wide variety of customers, primarily in the marketing industry. And then we started getting into different industries, really any industry that has a customer service team or a sales team that takes phone calls when they say this call is being monitored and recorded. That's us. A little bit about me. So about 20 years, over 20 years in tech. Worked with a lot of different industries. I did OTT when it started, so video broadcasting over the internet. Then decided to get into logistics. From that, went into telephony. I worked for a few years at Microsoft with their Dynamics team. Started my career as a developer. And right now I manage really the development teams, the AI and ML teams, DevOps, product, and a bunch of other fun teams. So that's a little bit about me. I do actually fly. So any pilots here today? Looks like I'm the only one. All right, so really quick about call tracking. What is call tracking? So a business will provision phone numbers through our system. They will use them in marketing campaigns, and that will connect the gap between what I call online marketing, which is cookies and being able to track a customer from clicking on an ad all the way to converting. But when it goes offline, meaning they pick up that phone and dial your sales line, that's when things get a little bit shady. So we connect the dots there. So once that call is placed, we play the disclaimer and say the call is being monitored and recorded, and it is. And then we take that recording and analyze it. So that recording runs through a transcription process where it is transcribed from voice to text, and then it runs through our AI and ML algorithms. We spit about 60 different indicators today on a call, and we answer some really important questions. Primarily, it's the ROI question. That's what our customers are interested in. It's all about the ROI at the end of the day. I spent $50,000 on this campaign. How much did I get back? That's what it's all about. So the company gains useful insights from analytics, and at the end of the day, what really, really matters is how did the campaign perform? So most of it is digital nowadays. So yes, Google Ads and other online methods, but we track also the offline, more traditional ways of marketing, billboards, mailers, etc. All right, so I've been with Conversa for, what is it now? Probably a year and a half. And when I joined, this was the situation. So we were 100% AWS shop. We didn't do anything with GCP. And we had 450 plus EC2 servers running in VM mode. Well, VM mode is my way of saying they're self-managed. We are in the cloud, but we're running it as if it was on-prem. Someone made the decision some time ago to migrate these servers from an on-prem situation to the cloud, but they didn't change anything. All they did is they migrated them server for server and managed the OS, managed the patching, managed all the security patches, etc. We have 4 servers that are running in a master-slave configuration. Again, VM mode. We had no containers, no cloud functions, and no microservices. So we needed to change a few things. In telecom, every microsecond counts. So the longer it takes for a call to connect, the more likely that lead that decided to call your business is going to hang up and call someone else. So for us, it's very important to be able to connect the call as soon as it gets in. It was harder to maintain the infrastructure. So we had hundreds of servers working with patches and OS updates and multiple engineers managing the DevOps aspect of our status quo. And cost. So in order to manage the additional load that we were getting, our sales team was selling, we're getting more customers, we had to manage that load somehow. The only way for us to manage it is by adding more servers. So we were growing vertically instead of horizontally. And there was no way to dynamically increase the size and decrease it when there was no load, let's say at 4 a.m. in the morning. There are no phone calls, really. So that's the reality of telecom, and we wanted to do this as quickly as possible and to be able to integrate as quickly as possible to come up with new services and products that we can offer our customers. So let's talk about instant data. So we, in this case the carrier, we pay for every second while the call comes in. In telecom, there are 2 legs to the call. There's the caller that calls in, and then we connect it to our customer, the agent in this case. Any delay between connecting these calls is a cost that we will eat as the carrier. We do not bill for that time. So this was costing us a lot because you multiply, let's call it a second or 2. If you multiply that by millions and millions of calls, that's a lot of seconds. So it does cost money. Again, I spoke about the dead air between an IVR and a prompt and a message being played, and then if there is just empty dead air, there is that potential of the customer just hanging up and calling the next person on the list. As a company, we sell data. We're not really in the telecom vertical, although it is part of our business, but we sell data. Our customers trust us with all this data. We need to sell them instant insights. We need to provide them instant insights about how their business is doing. A lot of things happen post-call in our world. When that call ends, it starts with a transcription, getting all the data, and I'll get into examples about that here in a minute. Let's talk real world here. So let's say I had 3 DevOps engineers. A good DevOps engineer today is going to cost you somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000 a year to hire. And these guys were just patching OSs and migrating and dealing with hardware issues and servers crashing. That's all they did every day. We were running on multiple operating systems. Managing them was a nightmare. Monitoring them was a nightmare. And at 3 a.m. every morning, guess what? An alarm, just because a server ran out of disk space. So it was hard to scale. It was very hard to load balance a database running in VM mode. So with that being said, there's our core telecom API, which resulted in loss of revenue and bill credits. Were very normal in our business. And I'm going to talk about the core telecom API in a moment, because that was a secondary pilot that we ran really without telling anyone about it. So the Google team didn't know about it. 66 Degrees didn't know about it. But we were like, OK, if we're going to do a POC, we're going to want them to do a POC first. and then we're going to run one in parallel to see how we're going to do it on our own. And is it really worth migrating everything to GCP? And of course, I said on a budget. So cost is a very important factor to consider. So we've looked at every way to cut down on cost, and it all came down to these VMs. We're just running them 24/7, not scaling up and down. And I looked at reviews. When I joined the company, I looked at customer reviews, real customer reviews. What did they say about my business? It all pointed to BI. And BI relies on database. If your database does not perform, then your reports are going to be either out of sync or they're going to take minutes to produce. And no customer is going to wait for minutes nowadays. So we had to do something about the database. We knew that the database is the main reason for our challenges. So we spoke about that, right? So scaling was hard. System was designed in blocks, in different phases. We're talking about tech debt. Everyone has tech debt. But when you're looking at a 20-year-old company that transitioned through, we were there before the cloud. And then we thought we are in the cloud. But when we really looked at it, I asked my team, the first weeks I joined, and they said, what are you talking about? We are in the cloud. No, you're not. If you're running in VM mode, you're not utilizing the existing services. You're not utilizing containers. You're not looking at a database that is right there. You don't have to manage it. You don't need to worry about it. It should just work. So we could go and build new things instead of just taking blocks of code, reinventing the wheel. It didn't work for us. So changing my team's perception of what the cloud is was a big part of it. So they understand how to approach it the right way. So when we got to, all right, who are we going to do this with? What KPIs are we going to set for choosing a partner? I think the first one is the most important one. We needed a partner that is a subject matter expert. Meaning, do not send me a knowledge base article and tell me to go read what Cloud SQL is. I know what Cloud SQL is, but I will have additional questions that are going to be very specific, and only someone with the right experience will know how to answer them. That's where a real partner is going to shine. So it was extremely important, and I think that was the main reason we moved all our business from AWS to GCP. Just like anyone else, I want to save money, so I have to decrease spend. I'm going to look good within my organization, and I can use that money elsewhere to create new products and services. It needed to be scalable, so instead of the vertical scale scenario that we lived in, I wanted a horizontal scalable solution. So I could, yes, if I grow by 3-4x next year, all I needed to do is just scale horizontally, and things should theoretically work the way they are. Save money on DevOps. So now I've transitioned, and I'm looking for, and I've hired engineers that are cloud-focused, who can look into things like understand Cloud SQL, how to maintain it, how to keep it up and running, Kubernetes, microservices, and cloud functions. And we're moving from these VMs in the cloud of just a Node.js server that is running an application and acting as an API server, et cetera. Just like everywhere else, everyone keeps adding nines to the uptime. In telecom, that is a trend. That is a trend. So it had to be up all the time. If it goes down, we will lose customers the second these calls do not connect. If the call gets disconnected, They spent money on getting that lead. So it's just not acceptable. And then we needed to improve the overall performance of the application. Because again, based on feedback from customers, it was always about reporting. It took too long to generate reports. Reports were out of sync because of the master-slave configuration and the delay between the two. A call comes in now, it will only reflect on reports probably 15 minutes later. And that was a major problem. Yeah. So, again, we were an AWS shop. And this is my honest feedback to that team and the overall experience. So, the customer-obsessed company never reached out to me, AKA the customer. I never heard from an account manager or a salesperson or anyone that works for the business for many months about where I stand and how they can help me improve my business. This is not a sales pitch. I'm here just to tell a story. So before I joined the business, my team attempted to migrate to Aurora. And I looked at the data, didn't look well. I'm like, okay, maybe I can help. Let's do it again. And we did. And we couldn't get it done. I mean, we migrated the database, but it was so many steps. It's importing the skeleton of the database and then dropping all of the foreign keys, importing the data itself, handle all the errors that showed up, recreate all the foreign keys and the indexing that took forever, vacuum it, and then after doing all that, we realized, oh, we're out of sync. So our master database that was live and the replica we created, they were out of sync. Well, how are we going to sync them now? What kind of service are we going to use? And probably they do have a solution. There are a lot of very smart people that work at AWS. They just didn't bother to tell me about it. So that was my experience. So let's compare that to how things went with GCP and 66 Degrees, who really took the lead on the POC. So when we started talking, I highlighted the problem and I said, we need this database migrated. And if we migrate the database, then we'll figure out the containerization of things and GKE and all that. We'll figure that out. Just get me the database there. It's not on my roadmap. I don't have time to do it. I have very limited bandwidth. And you're going to have to run it on your own. I'll help. I'll answer questions, but don't expect me to throw 5 developers at it. I'm not throwing resources. You guys do it, at least from a POC perspective. So that's what happened. The 66 Degrees team started asking questions about our business. They understood our business first. They understood how we write and read data from that database. And then they started the migration process. Yes, it did take some time, and we do have a massive database. We don't run in multiple databases. Everything runs in one massive database because of the necessity for the data to be live at all times. And I believe the POC went very well. And the most important win that we saw is a 2x performance boost. And how do we measure that? What is a 2x performance boost? We have reports that, let's say, take 2 minutes to produce. Well, if we can produce the same report with the same data in a minute, well, it's taking half the time. It's a 2x performance. In parallel, what we did is we built our core telephony API. And this is what our entire business relies on from a telecom perspective. This is basically migrating from the old SIP way of doing phone calls to the new API-driven telephony. So we have a mix of carriers that feed our network with phone calls. And the call comes in, it hits us, there's a webhook, and it says, hey, a call came in on 888-1234. What should I do with it? That's when we look into the database. Which customer does it belong to? Okay, customer X. Which campaign? Campaign Y. What kind of flow? 1, 2, 3, play this message, IVR. After the IVR, determine where to route it, how to route it. Is it a hunting group? Is it a single number, et cetera? So we need to make all these decisions on the fly as the call is coming in. So we created this on our own using Cloud SQL and GKE. That's all we use to build that very, very important API. So in Cloud SQL, that webhook that I told you about would hit the application logic layer, second one right here. And that will take a trip to the database, come back. But then, what if it was an IVR? Press 1 for sales, 2 for support, 3 to pay your bill, etc. You press 2. You want to go to support. Well, it goes back. What should I do? Okay, you should do this. Route it to this number, and then we move on. And after that comes all the post-call processing, where we trigger webhooks, and we handle things like a customer called in, your agent did not handle it very well, the customer is not happy, they're going to go post a review about your business right now online. Well, we should trigger some kind of notification that says, hey, Mr. Manager, reach out to this customer before they go post that review. If you pick up the phone now and handle the situation, maybe you can solve whatever they were inquiring about, and you wouldn't have a problem then. So this is how we did it. These are a few of the services that we use to create Zeus. So Cloud SQL is at the heart and center of everything. It is the main database, and I think it performs extremely well. We went to GKE, and we created containers for every level of the application. And remember, these are scalable, right? So during peak hours, Monday, 10 to 2 p.m. Eastern, that's our peak. We're getting hammered by hundreds of thousands of calls. And then you look at the same day at 4 a.m., and there's a few calls coming at that time. So it needs to scale and handle that load accordingly. Everything in telephony changed to APIs versus SIP, so I don't have to worry about the SIP protocol and the 200s and the 183s and all that. I said, hey, telecom company, you're going to give me the phone numbers, I'll provision them. You hit me with the webhook, and I'll tell you what to do with the call. So it's extremely modern. We are working with Dialogflow because everything we do is connected to that recording at the end of the call. So when a customer says something like, I would like to buy this item. Okay, well, we spotted the word buy, and that could mean a conversion. Well, that's the old way of doing it. The new way is let's look at the intent itself. Is there an intent to purchase? Or could they have said something else? Could they have said, I am not going to buy the car because I don't like the color? Well, the word buy is still in that sentence. If I'm doing keyword spotting, it would be a conversion, but the intent is definitely a negative here. So everyone within our business vertical is trying to do conversation analytics in a way where they could tell you what your ROI is on a campaign. Yeah, we do that, but we take it a step further and we say, this is how much money you made, but this is how much money you actually left on the table by not converting the following customers. They called in, obviously they had an intent to buy, and your agent did not close because they didn't hit item 1, 2, 3. First, here's a notification. Pick up the phone, speak to that customer, try to convert. Win back that customer. That way you pick up money off the table. And 2, this is how you coach your team moving forward. to close better. So that's how we connect the data. Right now, we're at microsecond response times, so no more losing money on the seconds that it took to connect a call. We're billing for every second, and my team is happy. At least my management team is happy. They're making more money. ROI is good, and we're growing. We got to meet a lot of experts. So when we started working with the 66 Degrees team, it's like, okay, you can help me with Cloud SQL, but we are a company that is obsessed with AI and ML. What can you do for me? What kind of experts can you introduce me to? And what can I learn from them? There are always multiple paths to create a solution. My question will always be, which one is best for my situation? These are the technologies I know. This is what I want to build. How can I get there the fastest? And obviously, we save money. So, instead of having multiple DevOps engineers, we have actually only one now, which is a cloud engineer. And his job is to help us move things to the cloud. So we're moving servers gradually as we can, taking every little component, containerizing it, moving it to the cloud, etc. So I'm going to talk for a minute about conversation analytics and what that is and how it works. I think this is a scenario that I just mentioned where we're not doing any keyword spotting. We're more about the intents. And here's where we are planning to go. So we did sign a multi-year partnership with Google and 66 Degrees because they were really customer obsessed. They asked the right questions. They provided the answers I needed. And ultimately, I think they helped me provide a better service to my customers. So we're happy with that. As a result, our past 12 months, and that's when we started working with Google, have been extremely positive. And we just acquired a competitor, which means we're not only growing organically, we're growing by acquisition, and that is good news. It means that we are doing well from a business perspective. Right now, we're producing about 60 different indicators on these recorded calls, and that list is growing by the day. We're building exactly what our customers are asking for from an AI and ML perspective, and it used to take months to create one indicator, to train the data, to make it look right. It's just happening in a faster way because my data is structured. I can pull it out easily, move things around, throw it through the machine learning process, and as a result, now I have an AI that could listen to any call and generate the data that I need. We're looking to do this in other languages because if you think of a recording, once that recording is transcribed, so it changes from a WAV or MP3 file to the text format, it's really chat. It's different chat bubbles. So once I have that, I could do it in any language that I want. I could use Google Translate and have a conversation that was initially in Spanish, translate it to English, run the machine learning algorithm on it. It will produce the same 60 indicators. And I could take any other language in the world, translate it to the base language of English, and run my algorithms. That'll be phase one. Phase two is to train against these languages specifically once we have the volume. But right now, we serve only North American customers, so Spanish is the next one we're interested in. We gamified the team experience, meaning you have a customer service team consisting of 20 agents. And what we've done is we created a point system that looks at how you performed on this call. How many points did you get? And there will be a first place, second place, third place for every agent within the team, so the team members can compete. It makes it a fun experience for our customers. But then at the same time, it's really utilizing all of these indicators to create the points on every call. So it makes you a better agent as a result. We want to answer the big question, ROI. That's really the main focus that all of our customers ask us is, great, you're telling me how to get better, you're telling me what I'm doing wrong, you're telling me how much money I made, you're telling me how much money I lost, but can you connect that to my spend on the marketing campaign and say, you've spent X, you've made Y, your cost per acquisition is Z, and you take it from there. And that's what we're focused on, providing that type of data. As a company, we're focused on inbound calls. We never do outbound because we are in the call tracking industry. But now we're looking to add outbound to that and add telephony itself as a service. Integrate the data into CRMs and marketplaces, et cetera, so that our customers can connect the dots between what we see in our system and what they see within their CRMs. I think that's it, at least according to my slide. A little bit about me, but more than happy to take any questions. Go ahead.
You mentioned two sides of the kind of the process. One is that the milliseconds, identifying what's happening and routing the call accordingly, and then the last part, like the analyzing a recording after the call. It's like two different time variation or two time dimensions. What about analyzing I would say the recording or while in the call, and in addition to creating reports after the call, but acting as the call happened or getting some?
Yes, it's a great question. You're talking about doing things live as the call is taking place, and we do that as well. So here's why doing it post-call is important. Yes, we could look at things and say this indicator was triggered throughout the call because you said 1, 2, 3, right, being the agent. We do that in certain scenarios, but there are certain indicators, and that's why an intent is super important. There are certain indicators that are going to be a miss at the beginning of the call. They're going to be hit, meaning a positive response in the middle of the call, and they will convert back to a miss at the end of the call because the conversation changes throughout the duration of the call. You could be losing the deal, almost winning it, flips to a positive, and then you lose it at the end. So it's very important that you follow it through, and we do that also in real time. There are many competitors who try to do that, but the problem is, or the challenge is that this is industry specific. So it is very different for a classic retailer compared to a car dealership, because certain keywords are going to mean different things. So we need to train, and that's what we do. We train our AIs to be industry specific. So if you're in the car dealership vertical, you have very specific AIs and MLs that handle that. But then if you're a retailer and you sell a product of sorts, it's a completely different algorithm that is going to look at it. But it's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. You made a comment about, I jotted it down, that the key was to change the perception of what the cloud is for the rest of the team. Like, how did you do that outside of just conversations? Was there an internal process or anything that you can highlight that helps others kind of go through that exercise?
Absolutely, absolutely. It was really meeting the experts through the 66 Degrees team and the Google team, and taking a subject and say, how do we do this in the best way possible? What are we doing wrong by describing our process, and how can we do it better in the future? So we covered things like as simple as transcribing a call. And then we looked into AI and ML. And then we looked into security, which was a major concern for us because we have customers in the healthcare industry, and that needs to be HIPAA compliant, and other customers that have other regulations that apply. So the security of the data, how secure these services are, and how we utilize them to the max was always a question that we needed answered by both teams. So once they got to meet the experts, once they got to ask their questions, they started changing how they think of the cloud and realizing, okay, now I understand the monetary aspect behind using them in VM mode. I am costing the business money by doing it this way. Understanding the challenges with scalability and how easy it would be with services like GKE, for example, to just scale up when needed, scale back down. But then, more importantly, look at things like, let's say, cloud functions. So instead of looking at it in a classic way and say, I'll just create a Node.js server here that is going to handle all these requests, hit the database, go back with a response. What we did is we created a cloud function that automatically scales, that serves as a microservice that is going to answer a very specific business question. So we're getting there. I think it will always be a work in progress, because understanding the cloud 100% is a challenge. Is something that there are always new things. There are always new ways of doing things, and there are always better ways to do something. And we will continue to learn. But I think the information that was provided was enough for them to make that shift. Thank you. Any other questions?
What was the consideration of choosing a specific database and all of that?
So we were a Postgres shop before migrating. So it needed to be Postgres because all of our application layer logic is built with OBDC connections to Postgres. So it had to stay there. We couldn't migrate it elsewhere. And then when we migrated, I'll be honest, the challenge we were having is load balancing between these multiple read replicas as an inquiry was coming. Let's say a report for the past year of data comes in. Well, that's gonna take a lot of processing power. And load balancing between these replicas was always a challenge for us, at least in VM mode. But once we moved that to Cloud SQL, then it was load balancing itself, and things were really automatically working. So that's the reason why we selected that kind of database. Thank you. All right, I'll hand it over to Artur. Thank you very much.